Minister, I suppose there are many unanswered questions which remain, and I don't even think all of the questions have been asked to date in relation to this. But what we do know is that the information is being drip-fed in relation to this project, and I think that is regrettable. I think it has caused more confusion, more public unease, and it has certainly eroded the confidence that some would have in the whole ability of the state to manage major capital projects. So if we can start from the start, in relation to this particular project, we know that the two-stage procurement process was a risk. We know that because there was a report done on it which gave the advantages of going down the two-stage construction, phase A, phase B. We know the advantages of it, and we also know the disadvantages of it. And it sets out clearly in that report which was done that one of the disadvantages is that you are not tying down your costs, and it could lead to cost overruns. Now, that transpired. Why did that transpire? I don't think we have the answer to that question completely yet. We certainly know some of the reasons why it transpired. We know that the bill of quantities was so far out that that obviously contributed to it. Deputy Wallace asked the question earlier, who signed off on this? That hasn't been answered as of yet. But what we do know is that the government's contracts committee, which gave the derogation to the paediatric development board, didn't sign off on it. They only said that the derogation could be taken up by the development board if they so wished. We know the Department of Health didn't sign off on the two-stage procurement process because they told us that. We know the Department of Public Expenditure didn't sign off on it because they have told us that. And we also know that the Minister for Health and the Minister for Finance and Public Expenditure didn't sign off on it because they have told us they didn't sign off on it. So that only leaves one element, which is the Development Board itself. Now, they're before the Public Accounts Committee in, I think, 2 or 3 weeks' time, and we'll ask them, did they sign off on it? And if they say they didn't sign off on it, then we have a major issue, because it would seem nobody signed off on it. So I'm just presuming they have, because everyone else says they haven't signed off on it. And it's a simple question to answer. Who signed off on the two-stage process? Like, it's not a state secret, surely. Surely somebody in the department knows who signed off on it. So instead of coming into Oireachtas committees, whether it's finance, whether it's health, or public accounts, and saying, well, we didn't sign off on it, tell us who did. That's the first issue. So it's the level of information that is coming out of departments, out of the HSE, it's being drip-fed, and it's just creating conspiracy theories in some places, but it's certainly not a good PR exercise from the government when you can't even say who signed off on the very process which probably led to the cost overruns. I also think the government needs to be honest with the information it's putting on the Dáil record. And I say this knowing now that nobody is a liar in this place, but the PwC report, the cost of that, Minister, I presume you know what the cost of that is. It's 450,000. That's what we've been told. Every single question has been put, leaders' questions, committees, the cost of the report is 450,000. That is not factually true. The cost of that report is going to be nearly 600,000 euros. You know it, I know it, but nobody is saying it publicly. I got back an answer from PQ reply today from the HSE in relation to the cost of that report. Because I had asked the question on numerous occasions, What's the cost of the report? Is it 450,000? Is it set in stone? It is. That's it. That's the maximum. Great value for money. The answer we got back today is 450,000 plus VAT of 23%, which is another 103,000, plus expenses is the answer. So it's 450,000 plus VAT plus expenses. How much are the expenses? We can't quantify those expenses yet because we don't know what they are. So there's a cost overrun on the report into cost overruns. I mean, how ridiculous are we getting, like? And you know that, and the government are not, you're just not being honest with the information you're giving people. And I would ask you to stop this kind of trying to spin figures, spin stories, and just be honest with people. In relation to the cost overrun itself, I agree with Deputy Fleming. We do not know what the final cost of this hospital is. I think Deputy Kelly was the first person in the Public Accounts Committee to publicly say that we are not stopping at 1.7 billion. And he's been proven right. Deputy Fleming's been proven right. And everyone else who has said that this is not 1.7 billion is being proven right. The only people who are saying that it's 1.7 billion is the government. And you need to start being, again, honest with the information. It is within the contract that construction inflation, if it exceeds, I think the figure is 4%, then the contractor can come back and look for additional monies. We're running construction inflation in the Dublin area around 11–12% at the moment. This is 8% above what the construction inflation is set within the contract. That's next year. There's also the year after and the year after that. So there is no way this government can say that this project is not going to exceed 2 billion. No, in fairness, there's no way I can say that it won't exceed 2 billion. But the reality is nobody knows what the final cost is going to be. And I don't know if the PwC report is going to be addressing that. The PwC report is going to look at the cost overruns, what caused them, how we can potentially reduce those cost overruns. And as I said, we'll have to await the outcome of that report. But what I don't get is we've already had a report. We had the Mazars report at the end of last year, which looked at the cost overruns. It went into some detail in relation to that. So I think there's a lot of questions to be answered here, Minister. We haven't got some of the main players before any of the Oireachtas committees yet to allow us to question them. I mean, the role of the Office of Government Procurement in all of this, people sitting on boards, not being responsible, or they're responsible to the board, collective decision making. We actually have a ludicrous situation where the minutes of the meetings of the Development Board are talking about cost overruns with the Department of Health and the HSC, and the Minister did not know about it himself. And not only that, they decided at the very same meeting when they were talking about cost overruns to write to the Minister and ask him, is there any chance you could reappoint us all? And the Minister said, not a bother. I'll reappoint you all. I asked the Minister on a PQ, prior to reappointing all of those individuals, did you ask for one report on the update in relation to the development of the Children's Hospital? Did you ask for any analysis of their performances as a board member? Did you ask him any questions at all? He didn't even speak to them. He just wrote back and reappointed them. Now, that is not good enough. We have the new chair of the Development Board before the Health Committee in the morning, and we'll be asking him some questions. And I hope he's more open than other members of the board, let's say, in relation to answering questions. I hope he's more open than the department and the government in answering questions, because there's very few questions you've answered which have actually been factually correct. And you've no one to blame, only yourselves for that, Minister. You've made the cock up here.
Thank you, Deputy.